was deeply entrenched in my mind ever since I was a young child. And maybe that was partly because my favorite color was green, and there is a lot of it there. Or perhaps it was because I was quite partial to the accent, because my best friend at the time was from Scotland, and back then I couldn't tell the difference. Or maybe it was for something a bit more alluring to my previously introverted ways, owning a remote thatched-roof cottage complete with smoking chimney and cobblestone pathway. All this amidst fields of green that would lead to a quaint village, for which I would call my home. Either way, time had come in my life for change. For many years, it felt like my life was on repeat. Wake up, work a little, plan an event for friends, do some hiking, go out for dinner, and then sleep. It was time to start chasing dreams again. Ancestrally speaking, I'm English, Irish, Scottish, and Polish. The easiest way to get a work visa for an entrepreneur who doesn't make millions is either to bite the bullet and work a regular 9-to-5 job for someone else, or to apply through their ancestral ties. My choice was clear, especially having already been there a few years prior. It took me over a year to put together the necessary documentation to prove my lineage for the ancestry visa. Part of it was learning the process as I went, and part of it was waiting for the higher-ups to do their part. This also required me to write my first business plan since high school, to prove my software company was actually sustainable. I kept the plans pretty hush-hush, as I didn't want to get my friends excited in case it didn't work out. There were quite a few exceptions on my application that had to be made. My case was pretty unique. I honestly didn't think it would get approved. My father also wasn't being very cooperative and wouldn't contribute any proof of heritage. I even had to make an interprovincial trip to obtain birth records in Alberta. Regardless, and miraculously, the UK Visa Centre sent me an approval letter a few months later. I had just started seeing an amazing woman who was a nurse in Canada, and broke the bad news to her. In fact, I had even assured her it was very unlikely I'd even be granted the visa. I had to make a choice, because she wasn't ready to take the leap into Northern Ireland. I chose the dream over the girl. That one hurt. I put many of my personal effects in storage, rented out my house, and bolted abroad. Ireland is a country split by the adversarial lines of ethnicity, the English and the Irish. While Northern Ireland is still part of the United Kingdom, the Republic of Ireland in the south is its own independent country that's part of the European Union. The Troubles were a period from the 1960s to the late 90s where native-born Irish were looking to cast off the strict British rule from their country and claim independence. The atrocities prior to this are too numerous to count, so I'm not going to delve into the politics. Derry and Belfast were two of the hardest hit areas. The cities, to this day, still have a big cultural and physical divide between them. Contrary to popular belief, the Troubles truly were about nationality and independence and almost nothing to do with religion. The Catholics, Irish, and the Protestants, British. In Belfast, the Catholic population prefers to remain on the west side of the city, on the other side of the river, while the Protestants predominantly in the east. I suppose this helps eliminate some of the potential conflict. The same is also true in Derry, where a peace bridge has now been built that crosses the river. It links the two sides together. In 1998, the Good Friday Agreement was reached, which abolished the border between the two countries and permitted free-flowing access for all citizens. This drastically helped reduce tensions. While conflict these days is rare, the energy in the air, especially in the north, is still very cautious and skeptical. My first few days in Belfast were a little bit terrifying. I didn't realize that the 12th of July ceremonies were in full swing. British identifying residents stack wooden pallets as high as skyscrapers and light them on fire for huge street parties. There's drunk people and noises everywhere. It felt like the whole city was on fire. They even burned the Irish flag and other cultural artifacts. I was blown away that this didn't incite mass violence and increase hostilities, and that it was still permitted to go on to this day. Personally, as a new resident, I was met with some mild social pushback for being an outsider. Racism and sexism are still very prominent in Northern Ireland, even towards Canadians. Locals are pretty wary of newcomers that aren't tourists, but as a tourist, they'll love you. For most new cities that I live in, I start a social club, which allows me to impart some of the best experiences I've had from the past onto a new city, while also making new friends. We had a lot of fun. From hikes and cook nights to communal canvas art night and more. Once people got used to the idea of coming over to a stranger's house, which is almost taboo there, it was a big hit. The apartment that I rented was gorgeous. It had 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms for a fraction of the price I would have paid back home. But many locals live in what are called terrace houses. They're very affordable. Every building shares sidewalls and roofs down the entire street, just like one giant apartment complex. I'm not sure if it was a normal thing, but there also wasn't a laundry room. The washer and dryer combo was a miniature box that sat under the kitchen counter. The only other differences, though, besides Canada, were the tiny fridges and stoves, and like New Zealand, the on-demand hot water heaters in every shower. Now that was bliss. It was also right on the edge of the city, overlooking the fields, with plenty of parking. Now, that's something that's hard to come by in Belfast with their tiny city streets. Often, cars will park half on the sidewalk to make room for the lane. People in the north often laugh about the poor condition of roads in the south, but in reality, today, they actually have massively upgraded their infrastructure. In the north, a two-way street feels about half the width it should be. And because of the troubles, the design of the roads is chaotic at best, as there used to be walls and dividers between sections of the city. Belfast is the best launching pad for adventure in Northern Ireland. The Cathedral Quarter downtown is a cultural hub for those looking for great nightlife, comedy and art shows, live music, food festivals, craft coffee shops, and more. In its heart, Commercial Court is the street you'll want to visit first. You'll be elbow to elbow with loud, excited locals and tourists alike. Annually, they also hold a huge Pride Festival, which shouldn't be missed if you're there at the right time. Or hop on the We Toast Tours communal bicycle for a grand pub tour of all the best of Belfast. Like any regular big city, you'll find the usual attractions like axe throwing, laser tag, bowling alleys, escape rooms, mini golf, and concert halls. But if you're looking for the best pool hall in town to shoot some billiards, Lavery's is your best bet. It's absolutely the best place to go. If you're off on your first trip away from home after high school and are looking for people your own age to hit the dance floor with, Limelight is your best bet for popular music and huge crowds of college kids. One of my favorite experiences in Belfast wasn't particularly Irish at all. It was the Harry Potter themed mixology class at the Cursed Goblet. It's quirky and cheesy, but for any Potter fan, you'll be in love the minute they sit you down in your very own robe, complete with wand. For the more cultural side of things, a breakfast at the elaborate Great Room restaurant will make you feel like a Victorian king, even if you wind up with an empty wallet by the end. I learned that one the hard way. It's pretty expensive. Afterwards, take a free stroll through the 28 acres of green space at the Botanical Gardens. Originally established in 1828, it's a popular spot for locals to hang out for picnics, study time, or for a romantic date. Bask in luxury for an elaborate evening dinner at the Harlem Cafe, where they usually have live music. Or AM/PM Bohemian Restaurant for something equally as gorgeous. Top the evening off with a murder mystery at the Cabaret Supper Club, and put your sleuthing skills to the test. The Kremlin Road Jail from the Victorian era was one of the most advanced prisons of its day. It was executing prisoners right up until 1961. They also do an awesome Halloween tour. Cave Hill is the local go-to for hiking since there aren't many mountains in the northeast. It's a 2-hour stroll, and that's if you really take your time. But it does offer a spectacular view of downtown Belfast, including the shipyards for which made the city famous. Mount Stewart, built in 1820 and previously known as Mount Pleasant, is one of the many National Trust heritage sites. Buying one of their touring passes will save a ton of cash on admissions to other attractions. The gardens on the property have been voted one of the top 10 in the world, so grab a tea and have a walk in the afternoon sun, like I did. The house tour is much like what you'd expect, with many time period specific and even original works of art, furniture, and other decor. Right next door to Mount Stewart is Grey Abbey. Surrounding the Abbey is now a small town of under 1,000 people, and it's a great spot to check out a few antique shops. The Abbey itself was built in 1193 and has a haunting aura to match. The looming ravens overhead will only add to the chilling atmosphere of the place. I wandered through the graveyard next to the ruins before dipping into the adjacent forest to pick up more of the energy of the place. Since you're already in the area, explore the rest of the Ards Peninsula. It has a number of other cute seaside towns and minor attractions that make well for a full-day adventure. Many locals rent caravans and head out to scenic spots on the ocean for a weekend escape. As you can imagine, tent camping in Ireland isn't quite as popular as back in Canada, probably because of the weather. I enjoyed the intricate network of winding roads and headed back for a complete full circle tour via the ferry at Portaferry. The dark hedges really lived up to their name. I thought this would make an awesome place to take friends on Halloween at midnight to do ghost stories with hot chocolate. The perfect start to any horror movie right there. There's no admission to walk the legendary road, and it's pretty easy to find. However, no cars are permitted on the avenue itself. The trees were planted in 1775 by James Stewart, who had built his new home at the end of the drive. Less than 90 of the 150 beech trees have survived to this day. There's also regular problems with graffiti and other damage from vandals. Luckily, it's not overly noticeable. There were also a filming location in Game of Thrones for King's Road, and also in 2017 for the Transformers movie, The Last Night. When I was in New Zealand, everything was marketed as the best of whatever in the world. The marketing and experience for the Goblins felt the same way. No self-guided tours are permitted and tickets sell out regularly, but probably just because of the marketing. The tour will take you on a bus to the cliffside where you'll do a trek that should only take about 20 minutes along a metal walkway. Don't get me wrong, it's pretty, but that should be a short stop. It almost turns into a full-day adventure. If you have time, skip it. There's much better stuff ahead. As I headed north, I knew there were a ton of smaller stops along the way that I had found on blogs, and it took me a full day to get to my destination, even though it should have only taken about an hour. Every time I'd get out of my car for a quick photo of a Google pin I had dropped, I wound up roaming the nearby area to see what else I could find. I was never disappointed. It's really easy to lose track of time when you're in an area like this. One of the must-do stops is Glen Eyre Forest. It's a massive, almost 1,200 hectare forest, and let's be honest, there's not a lot of trees left in Ireland due to heavy logging in the Middle Ages. However, there's a huge replanting effort underway for which I had donated. The view of the valley is stellar, and the paths lead to a few waterfalls as well. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, make it a bucket list item to see all of the impressive carved doors spread out through the entire country that tell its story. The Giants Causeway was my favorite spot in all of Northern Ireland. The hexagonal basalt columns were the result of an ancient volcanic fissure eruption, but that's not what local legend would have you believe. Legend has it that giant Finn McCool was challenged to a fight by his Scottish counterpart, Benandonner. He built the causeway across the North Channel so they could meet. It's still up for debate who won the fight in the end. Something interesting that I learned was that in Irish mythology, McCool is a hero with supernatural abilities. It's believed as well that over time, the pagan gods of Ireland grew smaller with the people's imaginations until they became fairies, while heroes turned into giants. The 20-meter Carrick-a-Reed rope bridge leads to a cliff where fishermen used to hunt for salmon. Today, it's only a tourist stop and a great chance to snap a photo of the coastline. I've mentioned in other videos that I love wine, but I'm actually allergic to beer. Though I couldn't give up the chance to see the old Bushmills distillery. Considering over 120,000 tourists visit it each year, it's gotta be pretty good, right? It launched in 1608 by order of King James I to distill whiskey, so they've got a bit of practice. They've won gold medals at World Spirits competitions, and the 40-minute tour was one of the best I've been through yet. Dunluce Castle, built in the Middle Ages, was at one point the seat of Clan McConnell, but it had many other dwellers over the years. Teetering over the ocean on a basalt outcropping, it has a fairy tale-esque feeling to it. If you're going to get married in Northern Ireland, this would be the spot. Though be mindful of the kitchen. Legend has it that it once collapsed into the sea below. It's been noted that today's Halloween costumes have been heavily influenced by the folk customs from pagan Ireland. Derry is well known for some of the most elaborate celebrations in the country. Everyone flocks there and I couldn't miss it. A massive Halloween parade and other unique exhibits haunt the town for well over a week. It's also home to the famous Derry Girls show and, as mentioned earlier, many iconic landmarks from the Troubles. Signs to join the IRA can still be seen in Derry today. Driving along the north coast is a huge journey with the patchwork job of farm roads, but you'll come across legendary sites like Mallinhead, appearing in Star Wars, and many others. Loch Earn in the far west of Northern Ireland had my two favorite places to stay. Mind you, the creekside wooden barrel hot tubs at Galgorm Spa outside of Belfast were also pretty epic. Take a free ferry and sleep in the luxury accommodation at the Lusty Beg. Practice up on your shooting, canoeing, or just take a dip in their massive indoor pool. Make a day excursion to take a tour of the Marble Arch Caves, or take an easy 3-hour hike up Calca Boardwalk. Now that had some great views. The real gem though, my number one recommendation for all of Northern Ireland for anywhere to stay, it's on the north side of the lake, the Finlock Bubble Domes. These giant inflatable plastic domes gives you the full overnight nature experience with the dryness, warmth, and comfort of a hotel room. I could have stayed there for a week. After a long road trip, this is the perfect place to truly decompress.